Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. Stepping a little aside from Dev Talks' regular profile, I have someone really, really special with me. I'm sure when you look at her, you remember one movie in particular, which made her face literally go viral, and that was The Accidental Prime Minister. I have with me Miss Suzanne Bernert, who's going to talk to us about her impression of Bharat. A lot of us have been talking about the narrative of Bharat. What is it? Let's try and find out from someone else. Namaskar, welcome to the show.
नमस्ते, आप कैसे हैं?
Absolutely, thank you. मैं एकदम ठीक हूँ. I hope आप भी ठीक हो.
ये मैं भी बिल्कुल ठीक हूँ। गर्मी है लेकिन ये सबकी हालत बुरी है तो क्या कर सकते हैं? We are all in the same boat or in the same ship on the same Bharat that is at the moment not giving us the rains that we are praying for.
Oh, you should come where I am. It's pouring outside. The temperature is 22 degrees, 23 degrees, and it's amazing.
Let's go. The
So,
whole of Mumbai and the whole of Delhi and Noida, we are all gonna just like shift to Mysore.
yeah, you
Wow,
should.
wonderful.
It's beautiful, 23, 25 degrees, and even in the daytime, sitting with just one number in the fan, so it's pleasant. Right.
That's wonderful.
So you've been associated with this country for a while now. You've worked here, you've lived here. Let me just open up and ask you. You know what happened recently? The elections, this, that, everything, and somebody's sad, somebody's happy, somebody's angry. What do you make of what's happening in our country today?
In regards to the elections?
In regards to generally, how's the situation, society? Where are we today as a country?
It's such a big country. You can't really like that is one thing that I have a hard time explaining to anybody who has never been to India. How big it is, how diverse it is, how wonderful and difficult at the same time. It can be exasperating, but it can be wonderful as well. So everybody who has been to India, even on a holiday, has more of an idea what it is about. Everybody else is kind of not understanding that there are like 22 official languages, that there are countless dialects, accents, cultures. You just if you take khichdi is going to be made in every household in a different way. So there is not that unity. I'm German. So in my country, there's one language. You have accents, but you don't have, you have dialects, but you do not have this diversity that this country is having. So to explain it to anybody from the West is a very big task. And it is also, it needs a certain openness from the other side. And that openness I tend to see missing in a lot of people. Either they're not interested in the country, they're underestimating it, or they मेरा क्या लेना देना है? It is not. It has nothing to do with my life. Why should I be interested in India?
That's an interesting answer
So the
because
elections
a lot
were
of
one big example where, on the other hand, there's a lot of interference happening. I mean, the what I said was for the normal public, where I was thinking they are not really interested, but on a political level, there's a big interest. What's happening in India, how it is happening in India, and how India can be useful. So there was a lot of disinformation, misinformation, all that was going on, and especially on Twitter and with articles. Constant articles were coming with a certain kind of agenda, with a certain kind of idea behind it, with a certain kind of funding behind it, and it's disheartening to see how much they're um, trying to bring this country down or trying to like control certain elements of it. And so there is on one side this India is not important enough, and on the other hand, we are putting a lot of money behind of trying to get it under our control in a certain way. So this is a very interesting balance that I see there. Like you need to do for us what we want you to do for us, but what's happening with you and your borders or whatever, it is not of any interest for us. It's a very puzzle. It's a puzzle actually.
now that's a very interesting perspective you've spoken about interference because when we look at the West, we really wonder what do you want? I mean, we are thousands of miles away from you. Uh, you have your own issues within your country. Why is it that there is so much interest in what happens in India or if Modi comes back or not? The main focus was that. I mean, why
Main
is it that the West has so much India focus? When they say, no,
Right?
no, no, India is not important. Why do you
Yeah, yeah,
think that?
but then on the other hand, I just started reading this report from this Info Lab, I think, and it came through me to an article of a Bengali journalist who's written this really amazing piece on it, and how much money was actually spent, and how like suddenly France was interested in what's going on in India, and France was doing articles, and France was like, where's France suddenly coming in the picture? I'm as a European, I when I am on holiday in my own country, in Germany, or I travel in Europe, there's a relaxed kind of an attitude towards India. People love the Indian food. There are a lot of Indian restaurants. There are a lot of Indians who are working. There are a lot of Indians living, and my parents are living in the south of Germany in a very small city. And there are a lot of Indian families already there, not only single men coming to work in certain environments, but they bring their whole families with them as well. And they like their life there and they live there. And they're accepted by the society. It's just very smooth there. So that's about the extent, Oh, I have a co-worker who's Indian, or I like to go for Indian food. That's the whole extent of interest in India and in the country itself by the population, unless it is somebody who's interested in politics. Now, suddenly, where's France popping in the picture and saying, okay, what is going on and why is this happening? And all caste census and women's empowerment and what all they were putting up on the table. So it's not really understanding from where suddenly these interests, let's put it like that, these interests are coming from. So it's a puzzle for me. And the more I
Don't
read
mind,
about it, the more confused I get.
don't mind me asking you something. You're a typical white European, right?
Yeah.
Typical. You're born in Germany, you're raised in Germany, you're a German person, European, with the European value systems and this and that. So you've been brought up with that. Now, a lot of people will, as what you would read in your country or in Europe for that matter, is that India, there is a lot of nonsense. It is, just people are getting killed all around the place. I wanted to ask you, you're a typical, what they would call it, a European person. You're Caucasian, you're educated there, you're from Germany, uh, southern Germany, beautiful place, by the way. I visited that area. It's absolutely beautiful. Uh, So when you read what is there in European media, what is being spoken by the European Union, the officials there, there's random killings in India, there is mass rapes, there is thefts, there is this, there is that, there is political violence, there is people like me with this tilak roaming around with
Mm.
swords and doing all sorts of things and stuff like that. And when you are in India, when you experience this whole thing, how do you kind of balance it? Don't you look back and say, what's happening here? What was your realization that this whole thing is just a big bias?
I have been observing this bias for a long time. I mean, it goes back to movies like Slumdog Millionaires that are was the super hit that got an Oscar and everything, and that was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life, with such a bad agenda about India, with such a bad old-fashioned picture, and making it into this. Okay, you have rich people, you have poor people, and poor people are being trampled upon, and nobody's doing anything for them. And then there's suddenly somebody's dancing in the middle, and yeah. So I have seen a stereotype since I have come here, because I like interest in India was never big. I've been living here now for 19 years. The kind of in-depth questions I could ask for that people have asked me about India, I can count on one hand, like in-depth questions. Yeah, because a lot of people, maybe some viewers who are NRIs, they can relate. There is this kind of like, you are outside of the country, you live your life, and but nobody can really understand what that life is like. So they
Mhm.
don't really understand that you have an actual life there, and it's not when you come back to Germany that's your life. So there is this whole thing like that. So the interest by friends, family around me is very limited to what I'm doing in my life, but not how the country is in itself. So that's one thing. Bias I've seen for many years, and my late husband Akil, he was telling in 2013 and 12, he was trying to tell people, okay, see what you're seeing in the media and what is actually happening. is not really gelling here. Yeah. So the real interest of mine only started in lockdown, because lockdown we all had a lot of time. So in lockdown I started to be more interested. We had more time. I was listening to more YouTube videos. I could see more what's going on. It's hard to put in words what is actually happening and why it is happening, because when I was in Germany just now, there was this article in the local paper that my dad reads about Modi and the elections. And even my dad, because of me, he understands. He said, look at the wording, look at how they are wording this. Right, hard right wing Hindu nationalist. And he's like, yeah, but most of the people in the country are Hindu. How are you supposed to? It's like calling Germany this Christian, Christian base. I don't even know what to call this. So even my dad, because of me, he saw that. Then after I left, he said me, you know what? Germany is trying to do more business with India, so some of the narrative is changing. There are more documentaries are coming that are not focusing on slums or they're focusing on Vikas, they're focusing on the bridges being built or the cooperations that are happening, the MUAs that are being signed between the countries, because Germany looks like wants to move away from China and move towards India in the business sense. So he said he can see a slight change in that perspective. But I'm puzzled by how people who have no idea about what's going on in the country are writing articles or are so-called experts on the country.
How do you say when we respond to them, they call us bigots?
I mean, we can leave it up to capable people like Jay Shankar, who always has very good answers. So I think we're in good hands with the government, who's doing their best to balance this interesting democratic conundrum. Because who is your friend today might not be your friend tomorrow, and who is an ally today might not be an ally tomorrow. But at the same time, you need to have good relations with everybody, and I think India is an expert at it. They are walking that tightrope very nicely.
I think that's a good surmise to what's actually happening. You played a certain role in a movie, and that role today is loved by a few, hated by a many, right? Not the role itself, the acting was fantastic, but the character.
Right.
What did you learn about that?
I take my personal opinion and my political opinion out when I'm acting, because I am doing a project of a producer, a director. So it's their vision that counts for everything. That is for every product, for every project I'm doing. Because many a times I might not agree with my character graph. I might not agree where the story is heading. I might not agree. I might have personal opinions about it. But when I'm acting, be it a fictional character or real life character, I just try to make it a wholesome human being. And in her case, I didn't want to do mimicry. I wanted to make her I wanted to be as near as possible to the actual human being. And whatever they wanted me to act, I acted. Like the scenes, the dialogue, that's not up to me.
That apart, but your own thought process.
My responsibility is only to make the character alive.
Yeah.
So that's my responsibility. That's my work.
After
Whatever
the
other
fact,
opinions I
I'm
have.
after the fact, I'm sure you reflected upon the game. The acting was perfect, and I'm not saying anything. But you're a human being. After that, you kind of reflect. Okay, I played a role. This is a real human being. Did this actually happen in this country? What are we talking about here?
Yeah,
This is
yeah. Ye
so.
to
What
hai.
was that?
And anybody who's telling me why are you doing these kinds of movies, I'm asking them back, why has Congress not made a movie on her? There are so many supporters, there's so many people out there, they have a lot of money, they could make a movie about her life, her struggle, her coming to the country, her trying to make a living here and a life here and build everything up here and learn the language. And they haven't done it. That's my that's my counter action. Otherwise,
That's a strong point.
and that's something that I just came up with in a discussion with somebody else at an event right now. I said, actually, my question is, why is nobody making a movie on her? And that I would also act, because my responsibility is just towards that.
Fair enough. Point taken. I mean,
Otherwise,
that
the importance of that has diminished over the years. We all know it. So it's just not so.
yeah, that's there. That's there. But you said something very interesting. If they had to counter it, they should have made their own movie and called you to act, because you
Yeah,
might not have
yeah.
agreed with the role, but you would have done it. Fair
Yes, of
enough.
course I would have done it, because I believe that art is to be there to be discussed, Like if somebody makes a movie in a certain way, you are very free to take your money and make a counter movie. Why not? No,
But they didn't. So,
no.
what do you think about Mr. Modi? What is he doing to the country?
I have seen the changes in my personal life and around me and on the roads of India. The way I've been traveling, what I've seen, I'm here since 2005 November, and I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of what he talks about Vikas for the country. I've seen that. I've spoken to people around me. It's not. I'm not living in a pink bubble somewhere where it's only these actors and this kind of like crowd, and they have a lot of money. Um, I've interacted with people on the roads. I've been having chats with a guy who's selling a pakoda on the road or a samosa, or I've spoken to my mate, and I've spoken to a friend of mine who is not so well off, and his sister got a house, the support to be able to buy a house, yeah, in that Yojana. She's in UP. So I personally have seen a lot of very strong economy, a super young country. I think we are the youngest country in the world right now. I think the average age is now 27. I think. I don't think any other country is having this kind of average age. So there's a lot of responsibility to bring it ahead, and he is really a sevak for this country, because the way that guy is just roaming around, flying from here to there, having meetings, being constantly on the go. I'm just getting tired looking at it. I don't know how he does it. And
Yeah,
we're not talking somebody our age. And it's just like, look at
much
that.
older. Yeah.
So I think just the love for this country keeps it going. If you have something, you have a certain kind of passion, a manzil, a dharma, whatever, you want to do something and you're hell bent on doing it. That's fueling you. That's the kind of fire that is in the belly, and that will just propel a person ahead. And I see that in him. That whatever is coming, he's just going ahead with it, with his vision and with his people.
Let me come back to the West. When they talk about the Hindu religion, and there is nothing known as the Hindu religion. It's the Sanatan Dharma, which is a very
Eternal love.
different,
Yeah.
eternal way of life. When they talk about us, that these guys are fanatics and these guys are that and this, and they want that Hindu Rashtra, which is a scary thing for them. Everybody will be in orange and roaming around and doing stuff. So somebody would have asked you, aren't these fanatics bothering you over there? And
As I
what?
said, the interest is not there. Nobody has asked me this kind of question. The thing
So
is,
why is it? Why is it that
I
we are
think there's a
termed as?
disconnect. There's a disconnect is what a country is feeling about India. If I go on the road and, okay, one little example, I did a Christmas market film and I went from one stall to the other and asked you guys, I'm doing a YouTube video. I am a German actress, but I live in India and I'm shooting this for my Indian audience. And they're like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. And you really live there. And that's so exciting. And, you know, there is no, nobody has asked me this. Wherever I go and whoever I encounter, or I do a photo shoot in a sari in Germany on the roads, like I take a little reel or something, and people come and ask me about the garment, and they ask me, oh, how come you're wearing it? And then I'm explaining who I am and where I am, and then they're very interested in it. And I've come in the news in Germany as well, with interviews and stuff. And it always starts in the basics, that it's not one country, one language. It is so big you can't even imagine. There's so many people you can't even imagine. There's so many diverse factors that you can't even imagine. So somebody coming and asking me about fanatics, it hasn't happened. It's not in the mindset of the average German that I have encountered and spoken to.
That's interesting. So why do you think the people are the people, the powers that be, the I call it the deep state, want to convince people over there that India is a crazy country with people who are, you know, wanting to be a Hindu Rashtra. Modi is a nationalist, fascist. Now, when you say fascist in Europe, it kind of really hits
It's a
home, you
different
know?
thing. It's a different thing. It's a different thing to say
Yeah,
fascist, and especially looking at what's happening like with the elections in France and Aadi in Germany and all these things that are happening in Europe right
yeah,
now. It's a very different thing because right wing in India just means you are basically in the middle and you want like just go ahead, bring your country ahead. It's nothing to do with it. But I'm not understanding as well what is the interest of outside forces except for destabilizing the country to be able to deal and wheel, do what you want. Otherwise, what is the idea behind it? And what is similar, the similar sentiment, what I see some similarities is that for Modi, India is first and Indians is first. And Europe has lost that. So what's happening there right now is that whoever is voting right wing is voting right wing because they want to be heard.
hmm
I feel like Germans, like I had a couple of discussions with my brother and stuff and other people, and he was saying we are tired of not being heard. We are tired of paying high taxes and our social system is going down the drains. We are tired of not being able to go to the doctor like we used to because the system is overloaded with immigrants and people coming, refugees and stuff. He said, I never had a problem with people coming into the country, but the amount of people that has come, we can't absorb into our country. We have a limited amount of resources, and I see there is this dissatisfaction and unhappiness, and because they feel like everybody else is more important than us, everybody else having a higher value than us. So that's one explanation for what's going on in the elections in Europe, in my opinion. And on the other hand, why they try to paint this country in a certain way, again, you have a advantage if a country is in such a way, certain politicians are there that you can influence in a certain way through certain means. So there's always a way to, if you destabilize a country, you can basically do what you want.
You've subtly said what we very openly talk about, but thank you so much for that.
I mean, there are people who talk about this topic much better than I do.
Yeah, of course. I don't want you to talk about that. I want your perspective, because you're a person who's got one leg this way and a rather heavy leg this way, because 19 years
Yeah,
is a long
I,
time,
I'm, yeah, and I
you
never,
know.
from the age of 17, I lived outside of the country. I lived 4 years in South Korea and I lived in Taiwan.
I
And
mean, when I
so
look at you, you're like bindi and the suit and everything like that. So you look very Indian,
yeah,
which is there. So and but you do
it's
have
not
an
a
understanding.
costume, it's not a costume. It's not something that I put on just because I feel it
No,
is
you
something
feel very natural in it. I think you look pretty natural in it. And I've seen your profile, and I did do a little digging before I got in touch with you. So
uh-huh.
you do seem very natural with it. That's good. Now, when we see the elections in Europe, right? We see the right wing coming up. We see
Yeah.
the whole system building up, and we see Marie Le Pen kind of beating the pants out of Macron. We see Olaf Scholz and his Greens with Annalena Baerbock and the other guy who's found of who called us the jungle, and I forget his name, Harbeck, who called us the jungle and himself the garden. Uh, when we see that whole green agenda, the leftist agenda kind of getting pushed back in Europe, we say, yeah, we support that, because somewhere down the line, we also say these poor European people, they don't have money, they their fuel systems are cut off, they don't have employment, they don't have their factories are getting shut, their economy is going down in the tube. We will
Mhm.
kind of say, fair enough, yeah, good for your country. If you're taking command back of your country, damn good. And if you think it's a good future for you, vote for the AFT, vote for the Marie Le Pens in the world, get Georgia Maloney in. That's good.
I want an alternative. I want somebody who's not neither these left woke liberals who are just catering to everybody else. I want, but I also don't want somebody who's just been sentenced to money and maybe even a slight imprisonment term, if I got it right, for mouthing Nazi paroles. I also don't want that guy.
Yeah, of course.
Because I don't want extremes. Why does it have to be so extreme? Why do you think that you already have to go into that rhetoric? Why do you think just to save Germany, you do not have to take such big steps?
Extreme steps.
My mother is a big supporter of Sarah Wagenknecht. She made her own party. She was with the AfD. She has left them. And she seems to be the kind of person where people are relating to, because a lot of people who are also fed up with the government who looked at the AfD, they said, no, that is too extreme. That is also not my cup of tea. Yeah. So you have a very extreme right. Then you have this extreme, the Greens, who have put so many taxes on petrol alone that it has become a luxury to use a car. And they say, why don't you take public transportation? Yeah, come to the countryside of Germany and tell me how somebody who has a job to be at 6 o'clock in the morning will take the public transportation that starts at 7:30. Please tell me. Yeah, it is not possible. It's not possible to take in a city. You can take public transportation, but Germany has a lot of countryside, small little cities, 10,000 people living in one. Every household, like my brother lives in the countryside. There are 4 people in that house. There are 4 cars because he needs it. He needs to go to work. His wife needs to go to work somewhere else. The daughter has to go to somewhere else. The son has to go somewhere else. They can't even carpool. They have different timings. And there is no way that they can use any public transportation. So the Greens putting these extra taxes on people have made everybody's life more difficult in that sense. I can understand the sentiment. I'm also a supporter of safe soil, what seems to be a contradiction right now because I'm seeing these things. But on the other hand, you also have to understand people have to move, they have to make a living, they have to go from A to B. And Austria is also wanting to support environment and having some taxes on petrol and all, but it's not so crazy, it's not so high. And I know that because where my parents are is right next to the border to Austria. So you can see the difference between what the Austrian petrol price is and what the German petrol price is. So it's a ridiculous amount of money. So people are also saying, okay, we can't vote for the Greens because everything will get more expensive. And then you look at the government and you see there are some people who are not, they don't know even their own ministry. Then the decisions that they're taking, the steps that they're taking, they're not beneficial to the country. And
sorry, but the foreign minister, especially, she's a pretty looking lady, but
I was about to say something, but she is just like, what was it? A bill for I don't know how much money for makeup. A bill for I don't know how much for her hair because she needs her hair to look good.
Yeah.
And I just wrote under it in a comment section. I just wrote under it, sorry, I'm an actor, but I do my own makeup. It's literally something you pick up and learn. You don't need a makeup artist to travel with you around the world because you have events. It's not necessary. I'm sorry.
Pretty looking woman, but I use that for the particular purpose because that whole expose came out from there. So that's the whole extreme part of it, And how do you look at the wokeism, the wokist agenda, which is literally riding over the West today? Because when we look at it, we're like, thank God we're not there. Thank God our children are not there. What we see on the streets of Europe today, what we see on the streets of America, what we see in the streets of actually every country in that part of the world, these pride parades, these obnoxious, agenda-driven sort of a thing where you have to believe what we are saying. Otherwise, you are a fascist, right-wing extremist. Like people like me would be probably lined up on the wall and shot because my thought process is so hardcore right-wing for them that I would be equated to probably, I don't know, Joseph Goebbels' younger brother or something like that. But how do you see this whole agenda taking over Europe today? And the reaction to it is the extreme right, which is I've seen the flags in the AFD. They're not pleasing.
That is also not the solution. It's just that people are at their wits' end who to vote for. Because if they are voting for this party, then they're in this dilemma. And if they're voting for that party, then they're in that dilemma. And I think they just want to show the government, you can't do with us whatever you want. I mean, the whole thing is like people are waking up to the fact what's going on, because the Christian values in Germany are like, yeah, we're all equal. We're all thinking the same. We want everybody to come. And if there's a refuge and we have the space and we have the capacity, we will definitely take them in. That is the mindset. That is actually the feeling, because they come from this loving, caring for thy neighbor. What's in itself is a very noble and nice thing. But in reality, if you then suddenly have so many people flooding your country, then you also go like, and where am I in all of this? In my own country. And then in the newspaper, you see these kinds of things that, again, the ministers have put up they increased their money by 6%, and for the pensioners by 4.75%.
Yep.
And then there's a pensioner who is maybe having 400 euros or 500 euros, and she needs to have a subsidy for her rent because she can't afford it because the rent is only 1,000 or 800, and she has 500 to live on. And I really don't understand how, because the supermarket, like the pricing has gone tremendously up. It is crazy. It is to the extent that I don't understand. When I was in Germany 2019, you could get a good cappuccino for €1.50. That's like 150 rupees, 200 rupees or something like this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is like 500 in some places. 2019, and after COVID, we flew back to Germany in 2022 the last time. We left 2020 just before the lockdown happened, and we came back in 2022 on holiday for 3 months. And I was just like, my God, the pricing has gone through the roof. And
Yes, the
people
same.
don't make more money. People don't make more money. They're not, the money that is in their pocket is not there. Then they're seeing that people who are coming and are refugees, they're getting the housing paid, and they get the groceries paid, and they get this paid, and they get that paid, and then I have worked 40 years in this country. I have paid taxes 40 years in this country. Where am I in all of this? So there's a lot of this. There is no discourse. There is no monkey bar. There is no talking to each other. There is no connection with people. I feel like they're sitting somewhere and they're just assessing from the top what they think is going on in the country, but they don't have a real understanding what it is. And wonderful articles, by the way, by the ex-ambassador Walter Lindner. He keeps on writing. He's written a book that I haven't gotten my hands on it yet. But he is the kind of guy you also would like to talk to, I guess, because he is very good in understanding how the West sees it, or Germany, and the politicians there are seeing India, and how he sees it because he's been here.
Yeah. See, that's the whole thing. Now, why I took up Indian politics and I brought up European politics is because what the European media accuses us of being, right, of not taking care of our people, not taking care of minorities, is actually happening in Europe.
Yeah.
So it's hypocritical, where in a population of 800, 900 million people, and that's edge to edge Europe I'm talking about, with the islands and everything put together. Here is a population 1.5 times that size.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the smallest issue where you will have issues. I mean, you and I sit in one room for 2 days, you'll have a fight, I'll have a fight. I'll have 50 grouses with you, and you'll have 50 grouses with me. That's human nature. Right?
Yeah.
But incidents over there, for example, safety of women, it's ridiculous what we observers, when we know the news, we know the reality stuff, what happens in Sweden, what's happening in Denmark, what's happening in what happened in 2015 in Germany, in Paris. It's terrible.
It is terrible, especially the fact that where my parents are living and where I grew up, it was never an issue for me to walk in the middle of the city center at midnight. Now they say, please don't go after 10 p.m. as a woman.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And that's a city of not even 10,000 people, I think. That's the countryside where they say, please don't. Just pay attention. Just be careful. And that's not a situation that I'm going like, oh my God, because I don't feel, I know that probably I'm talking out of privilege and everything, but I'm here 19 years and touch wood. Every rickshaw I've taken alone at 1 o'clock in the morning, the guy got me home safe. Every taxi I've taken, nothing ever happened. Every time I go for shooting in the middle of nowhere and there's a driver and I'm the only person in the car, nothing has happened. So to think that I feel more safe here than I would in my own country is scary. Scary to hear that. I was actually looking at my mom because it was one of her friends who said that. She said, I'm telling my daughters to do that and it's going around in circles. It's not safe. You should not go after 10 o'clock in the city center.
That's shocking to me because I didn't know that, honestly. I mean, I keep a track of what's happening. I know in certain large cities
That is
in
not news. That is people talking. That is not in the
okay.
news. That is what you get to know when you're talking to people. This is not a
Mhm.
news article or anything that you can put your finger on. This is just the vibe when you're there. That they were saying it is better if you don't go there. So it is.
You know, there is a certain helplessness that I see in Europe, which I saw in India somewhere in 2012, right? There was a certain amount of helplessness. People were sick and tired of the nonsense that was taking place. There was in massive inflation, unemployment. We were corrupt. We were in scams. It was terrible.
I
I
know.
see
I
that
was here.
same
I was
situation.
here.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure you would have read about it before you did your role as well. Uh, so I see the same situation in Europe,
Yeah.
and we reacted and we got something for ourselves. And I see Europe trying to react and getting something for themselves, which is
Yeah,
where
but
I said that
they
a
don't
lot
have
of
a
people,
Modi. They don't have
yeah.
a Narendra Modi. That's the whole problem. We should just clone him into different versions, send him off to Europe.
Why is there so
I
much
think,
hate for Modi then?
don't you think that somebody who's shown a certain way and a certain the way he handles himself and the whole country and everybody and the diplomatic level and the economy level and everything, and you don't understand how he does it, don't you think you feel like lashing out because you can't do it yourself? You are not capable of doing what this man is doing. And he's not supposed to be so sharp and he's not supposed to be so good and he's not supposed to, because he's from India. How dare he does something that we can't pull off?
Because when we see that, and we also see within India the same kind of hatred towards him.
Yeah, but
The elections don't tell you that.
huh?
The elections tell you that Modi is highly unpopular, weak. What else? Uh, I'm forgetting now.
Who
There's
are you
so many of them.
quoting? Who are you quoting? Mahua Moitra or what? No, no. The whole thing is that anybody who's very popular also attracts a lot of haters in any line of business, in any line of being, where you are. People who do something, they are like that.
So, lastly, let me ask you this. When you did this role, you would have had picked up a massive fan following of the right in India. I mean, I hardly consider ourselves to be the right. I wish we were the right. I wish we had some sticks to do something. We are idiots. We're not even center sometimes. That's the problem with the right wing in India. So you would have picked up a
And that's
certain
what
fan
I'm
base.
trying to explain as well. That is what I'm trying to explain as well. A right wing, in what you are calling right wing, is very, very middle with a left leaning. Actually, it has nothing to do with right wing the way you're seeing it.
That's what I'm
Uh,
saying. I wish we were right wing. I wish I was right wing.
are
I would
you?
wear
Are you?
all sorts of things. I don't know.
Mm,
I don't care about the wing that I'm in. I am more pro India. I don't care if
yeah,
somebody calls me left, right. up, down. That's what it is. So
Hindus will always go with grace. They will. It's not in them to do the sticks and the swords unless it is a really a yudh where they have to look at Mahabharata. And so if it is necessary, then it will definitely happen. But as now, if it's not necessary, then we just like dance our way through this somehow.
see, that's a very interesting analogy. So I'm going to ask you one more question on this. You said the Hindu. What is in your mind when you say the Hindu of Bharat today? I wanted to ask you something else as the last question, but I'm going to squeeze this as the second last and then ask you the last question. What's your mind about the Hindu in Bharat today?
Empowered,
Really?
finally. I feel, yeah. I mean, put the discourse on Twitter aside, but just go to the grocery guy who has an Aadhaar card now, who has a bank account, who has a UPI, and his life. If you talk to the human being on the road, most of them will tell you their life has become better.
You know, that's
We
that's
are
that's one thing.
only what tiny percentages on Twitter of us. We are just an echo chamber. Twitter
Yeah.
is an echo chamber. We are just
Hmm.
talking in a certain way to a certain thing, and some might spill over into real life. Yeah, but in itself, the essence that is not internet, Twitter, or whatever. That is not Bharat. That is not the Hindu. The Hindu is the person who's coming to your house and delivering you your groceries, or the guy who's down on the road, or you know those other people. And I just see that every generation is building up on the next generation. The people who are like, how many times have you seen these headlines? The auto rickshaw driver who sends his daughter to medical school,
Yeah.
the person who is like doing everything so the next generation is having a better life. Everything right now for the children, for the next generation. I think those people are the Hindu that matters. And
We
I
need more
feel
people.
they don't feel so lost anymore. Like you said in 2012, we were fed up and lost and confused. I
Yeah.
think that has gone.
We need more people like you around. So that should be good. My last question to you is, you would have picked up a certain fan following uh,
Yeah.
from the right, supposed right in India, or the Modi followers, if I may. You would have picked up that fan following. People who have said, "Oh, this is our person. She understands what's happening, what happened to us, and this and that." But you would have also got some hate, right?
Hardly, hardly. I mean, I can count on one hand. I mean, they are very rarely. I don't know. My social media is very free of any hate or any nonsense. I have little tiffs and stuff like that, but it's not. It, even after the movie came out, I mean, no, not really. There were some people. There was a lot of confusion in that so-called right-wing compartment because they didn't understand the movie. They didn't watch the movie, so they thought it's a pro movie or something like this. So there was a confusion. So I got like everything from everybody. But most of it, I could see 95% have been good comments and a lot of appreciation and love. And even by people who know her personally, who came and said, very well done, the acting. So
Hmm, that is
I
very
think
interesting.
they could understand the difference between the acting and the person. And at that time, I was not so openly sprouting my whatever opinions I'm having.
Yeah, yeah.
But even in that, I'm trying to be balanced.
No, one has to be. I mean, you're not a politician that needs to take a side. You're a, you know, law-abiding person who stays in this country, who likes this country, probably you've become included within this culture in this country, and you like it. So that's perfectly all right. I
Yeah.
mean, there are loads
I
of
have
Indians
been
who,
included. I mean, I walk on the roads, I talk to people, I live my life, and nobody ever gives me the feeling being an outsider.
no, we like people coming in and kind of being part of us.
That's
That's
another thing that's so beautiful about here, this cultural appropriation. I was approached by somebody who wanted to write her PhD, or I don't remember what it was, about cultural appropriation, and she wanted my take on how many issues I had, how much trouble I had when I'm wearing sari or if I'm wearing kurtas, and how many people are like not wanting me to do that and talking about cultural appropriation. And I said, I'm sorry, girl, it's not happening because there's nothing like this here. You only get love and appreciation every time a foreigner puts on a sari or like
People, nice. Come here, come here. I'll give you two more. You know,
Yeah, but she was like very confused, and she was an Indian. She was very confused.
that's what she
When I
was
said
an Indian. If she was a
Indian,
Bharatiya, she would have
yeah.
understood.
She is what she is from. She's an Indian, but I think she's an NRI or something. It's been
Yeah,
years
so
ago. I did not.
Indian,
So there's
right?
a certain kind of
There's a
narrative
difference
that
between
comes.
yeah, there's a difference between Indians and Bharatiyas. You know.
Yeah, that's there. And the same goes for these articles, just to come back to the Western media as well. I had countless, not countless, but I had over the years a few approaches for articles, and they already
Mhm.
had their agenda. We want the story to go in a certain way. And I was like, yeah, but that's not my experience. I will not tell you something that you want to hear just because you already written the article in your mind. I do
I'm gonna
not, this kind of
I'm gonna talk to you
journalism.
offline. I'm gonna talk to you offline about this, right? You kindled a fire because this channel is all about narratives.
Yeah.
I literally sit down now. The recent podcast that is kind of doing the rounds is that Sarah Adams, CIA operative, who said something about our people doing something in Afghanistan and stuff like that. So
Oh,
she kind of put out a tweet in the morning that you Indians are too oversensitive. You guys don't know how to handle anything in Kashmir and all that stuff. So I wrote a 3-page, buster for her that please don't teach us what to do. Look what you've done to this region. And then if you understand that, come and talk. I have a podcast. Let me know if you want to come and yak. Let's do that. And I sent her a private message as well. Did not appreciate that. But if you're still willing to talk about it, because that's what we are, I'm not here to fight with you. Let's talk. I have a podcast. Let's do a live conversation, no edits, and let's see where it goes. I'm sure
this
she's
is a
not going to
beautiful
respond.
thing. A beautiful thing about this country is what discourse, talking, having interactions. You can even question. You can question your guru. You can question your God. You can question whatever you want to. There
Yeah.
will always be a discourse. There will always be a discussion, and that is something that a lot of people in the West also do not understand because they just want to be right, and they just want to tell you how it works. And they just have this complete, I don't know what blindness that they're having, that they think whatever they study, whatever they're thinking, that's the non plus ultra, that's the cream. I really do not understand how anybody can go and put their finger at anybody else. Like, who are they? Where are you coming from? If you have an issue, then it should be on political level discussed. It should not be an open discourse on Twitter. Who are you that you're sprouting something online um, about a country that you maybe have not even visited?
Yeah, absolutely. Madam, that was amazing. I had a lovely conversation, and I hope we can keep having these conversations. But most
Anytime.
importantly, lovely to be connected with you. As you said, there is an ecosystem that is needed of people who are of a similar line of thought. And I keep looking for people like that. I keep looking for people of a similar wavelength. A lot of people say, you keep talking to people who are the same kind. Yeah, I do, because I want to listen to the same thoughts. That's human nature. I don't want to be, this is not a debate that I'm going to sit here and fight with someone. And I like to be connected with more and more people that are looking at the idea of Bharat, right? We've not gone into the dwells and the realms of history of Bharat and this and that, but we've talked about what is today in an
Mm,
interesting comparative to what is happening in Europe.
yeah.
And thank you for actually putting in that bit, because that will help a lot of people understand, which actually I thought would be the title of the show. Europe and India. You know, I'm not going to say which is better, but that's what the judgment a lot of people will make from this particular episode.
I
I
get
don't
this
think,
question. I get this question. I
yeah,
sometimes do a question answer on Instagram, and I get this question: why do you stay in India? Why don't you go back to the developed Germany? I said, listen, the kind of life I'm living here, the kind of comfort I'm having here, the kind of easiness of living here. I see how people are slogging in Germany, how hard their life is, how much they don't have help. I'm very happy here. Yeah. From UPI payment to having somebody to help you with your groceries, to being able to order from Blinkit, to being able to have a maid. I don't have to, yes. And it is also, you're giving somebody jobs with that. So Germany, you have to do everything yourself. You have to go to the supermarket. You have to work your job. You have to do your taxes alone. You have to clean the house. You have to put petrol in your car. You have to wash your own car. It's everything you have to do your own. And infrastructure wise, there's a lot of patchwork going on right now because there is not that kind of money that needs to be there because money goes everywhere to everybody else except the country.
On that note, thank you so much and hope to catch up with you sometime in person. If you're down south, please do let me know. Till
Yeah.
then, Jai Bharat.
They